Y'all, it's your boy Black Label Security. I own a celebrity security company. I've done everybody from T.I., Lil Uzi Vert, Coley P, Moot Boy Plies, Rick Ross. The list go on and on and on, man. Your event ain't big enough if you're not booking Black Label. We the hottest security team in the industry right now. We travel, we have passports, we tote that eye, whatever you need, that's what we do. We help artists out with features. We got video vixens, we got photographers, we got videographers, we got personal fitness celebrity trainers, we got celebrity chefs. So you really can't miss us, man. If you're looking to do big things in the industry and that's what you really focused on, we really help the artists grow. Not really A&R, we do a lot of security. That's our primary work. Outside of primary work of doing security in our detail, we do try to help produce and help grow the artists. If you're locally grown, we try to get you further and pushed into a platform to where you can succeed. Our motto is, you know what I'm saying, everybody eats. So if we get you where you need to be in star status, then of course, you know, you book us and everybody just creates the team and it works for everybody.
Right. Everybody eat.
Eat.
Now, Black, man, where you from and where you grew up at, man? A lot of people may don't know that.
So I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the south side. And it's a very crime-riddled environment, welfare recipients, a lot of drugs, a lot of violence, a lot of mental abuse, a lot of physical abuse, a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of domestic violence, things of that nature. I grew up in a broken home, single-parent home. The only way out back when we was growing up was selling crack, and that was the only way out. Like there was the government wasn't putting money into the education. They wasn't fueling textbooks and computers, and they wasn't building the south side of St. Pete. So you had to get it how you got it. And I grew up in an all African American community, so a lot of my culturalism comes from an African American community where I was brought and raised up at, and where I'm familiar with.
So how was that growing up in south side of St. Pete, and you being on the whiteboard over there?
It was tough. It was beyond tough. It was traumatic. You know what I'm saying? Because it was either eat or be eaten. And man, you talking about, you know, back in the 80s where like it wasn't even acceptable. Like you're not coming outside. Like white people come out to buy crack and they getting their windows busted and they getting snatched out the car. They getting beat up with bats. And so, you know, I'm seeing all this and I'm trying to intake all this and I'm trying to survive myself, you know. Mm-hmm. So it was traumatic, but at the same time, you know, it was in my chest. You know what I'm saying? I had a heart, and they know that. You know what I'm saying? I put that work in. I was on the block with them, bleeding the block, beating the block. You know what I'm saying? Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, getting it on the grind.
So basically, your homies in the hood basically respect you as a brother.
Oh, ain't no doubt about it. You know what I'm saying? I paid my dues.
Mm-hmm. So St. Pete got a lot of street legends that was didn't really get their respect. Guys like Jed Lee.
Right, Jed Lee. You got Timothy Lee, Jed Lee, Peter Claw, Terry Lee, Robert Larry. Man, you got a lot of street legends, man. That Wonder Man, Romeo. You know, a lot of them dudes who didn't. They succeeded. You know what I mean? They brought the crack era into our community. Like in 1986 is when the crack hit real big in St. Pete. And back then, I was probably about, man, I had to been, I want to say maybe 5, 6, something like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Growing up around them and seeing what they was doing, you know, as far as, you know, getting the money in the community and getting the money out of the community. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was really big. So, you know, I grew up where everybody else where, like, man, we stood in the welfare lines, you know what I'm saying? We stood in the Toys for Tot lines around Christmas time, you know what I'm saying? Lights off. I mean, you know, the rappers be rapping about it, but we really lived that. Like, we going to get a garden hose from the neighbor house and running through the screen in the bathroom so we could take, you know, baths and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So, my whole thing was, man, I don't want to live like that. I see my mother struggle. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, I ain't doing it. Like, I refuse to. You know what I'm saying? So jumping off that porch at an early age, watching the boys come up like that, you know what I mean, would kind of entice me and, you know, got me to where I was going.
So when was your first encounter with the law enforcement that probably ended you up in prison?
I'm gonna say I was a first-time offender when they knocked me off. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, I had been selling crack since I was 11. I had been stealing cars since I was 12 and 13. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I've been curb serving, bicycle hustling, riding across town, selling to, you know, white people and shit like that since I was every bit of 11. So I didn't really get encountered with the police until the feds knocked me off.
So your first time offender, first time you ever catching a case?
Federal.
Federal.
It took a whole United States government to bring down my platform.
Right.
So we was just that structure.
Mm-hmm.
Just that structure. We was kids back then, getting it.
So it wasn't just you, it was you and
It was 14 of us. It was me and 5 of my homies. Mm-hmm. And then out of that 5 spun 14. Out of that 14, it went on to a 2-year, 62-man indictment after all that.
And it was basically just on drugs?
It was on drugs. It was on drug trafficking, guns, and they were trying to like do it like a racketeering, but they couldn't because we wasn't like gang affiliated. We didn't have colors and all that. We just was in our hood. Our hood was Harbordale. So on Harbordale, we just known for the 8 height. 8 height was the 8 ball. You know what I'm saying? That was our symbol. So it was Harbordale, and everybody, gator tail Harbordale. And so our symbolization is the gator, the alligator.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we wasn't like gang affiliated. This is our neighborhood. This is what we represented. Harbordale.
Yeah, it never was really like that in Florida. It really wasn't no gang activity.
Right. It was never gang
activity.
activity.
With the Spanish.
Right.
Spanish
you had the Latin Kings and the lynch mob, but like that's out of our league. Like we don't even register that. We don't even recognize that because that's not in our culture. That's not what we taught. That's not what we breed. See, our thing was crosstown, so we stayed on 9th Street, and you couldn't go cross town. Anybody cross 34th Street couldn't come down 9th Street. You know what I'm saying? So that was our beef. It was more territorial than anything. You know what I'm saying? If you cross 9th Street, then you cross 9th Street, you don't go cross 34th.
Right.
And you get caught slipping cross 34th, they gonna bust your head open. And same thing, y'all come down here on 9th Street, we catch you slipping, we gonna bust your head.
And that's basically what it was. It was just
territorial. It was just the markets of the city. It wasn't like gang affiliated.
Right.
You know.
So the first time you catch a case, you go to the feds. How much time you in there getting?
Man, them crackers gave me 15 years, day
15.
for day.
Day for day.
First time offender, never been in trouble. Football number, right out the back.
What was your charge?
Shit, I had 50 keys or more conspiracy to distribute cocaine, 30 keys or more conspiracy to distribute crack cocaine, armed trafficking charges, telecommunication devices, and some money laundering and some other bullshit.
And why was you able to get just 15?
Why was
the guidelines?
The guidelines, because our indictment split to 3. So you had those who were cooperating with the United States government. Then you had those who were pleading out to what their charges were, and you had those who were going to trial. 6 of them was going to trial, had to face the whole indictment. Those who played out just played out to whatever they could plead out to, whatever the crackers caught them with. And for the ones who was cooperating, that's what's spanning into a 62-man indictment after a year.
Right.
So I just took what was my responsibility and what they caught me with in the indictment. You know what I'm saying? What they had on film, not what they could testify to or what they couldn't prove. So I just went with what they could provide me with, and I took responsibility for what I was doing in the case with myself.
Right, bitch, you just got out the way.
I just got out the way because I already knew when them dudes was going to trial, they already had records and shit, and they was trying to suck people into that shit. And they were trying to tell everybody, oh, you can go to trial too, you can go to trial, you could beat them. But the conviction rate, 92%. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to win because I already know, you already showing me on film selling crack.
Right. What went through your mind when you caught 15 years?
15 years in the federal penitentiary, it's a loss. It's a huge loss. You lose your young adolescence.
How old you were at first?
Shit, I was 20.
20.
I just graduated high school.
Okay.
I just graduated high school, had 2 kids by 1 chick. You know what I'm saying? They took my house, they took 4 cars, took all my jewelry, hit me with $250,000 in cash out my attic. All this shit is documented in magazines and you could Google all this shit. But yeah. So getting 15 was like, they took me away from my kids, took me out the street, took me out the whole circumference of the drug game and put me in the penitentiary. And when they put me in the penitentiary, for me, what it did for me was it brought me cultural diversity. It taught me, it allowed me to self-liberate me through education. You know what I'm saying? So they put me in a circle with many millionaires. They put me in a circle with many people who had lived a life, you know what I mean, that I once was chasing. But they hadn't already lived a life. So they was able to sit me down and teach me and coach me and guide me and then started educating me and giving me books to read and certain different things to study. And, I started just, feeding off of that. But it was a tremendous loss.
Who was some good dudes you were locked up with kind of dropping jewels on you?
I was locked up with Willie D from the Ghetto Boys. He definitely dropped some jewels on me. I was locked up with a few celebrities. Damn, it's been a minute. But some of the Muslim brothers had some good educational, spiritual outlets. a lot of brothers who have just lived that the whole gangster life before, like they were running with Tukey and all that old, you know, real gang shit that was going on back then, the rolling 60s and all that. They had a chance to sit me down and just talk to me. Because I was always the youngest kid, you know, on the bunch or on the yard. I was so young. So they're like, you know, youngster, man, you don't need to go that route when you go home, this, that, and the third, woo, woo, woo. But, you know, I